Hi everyone, my name is Lebachang. Welcome to the very first ABSIP Young Professional Podcast. We're going to be dabbling into a lot of topics, thought-provoking topics. Today's topic is about transformation, particularly the legitimacy around transformation. So I'm joined by Miss Tantaswa Fubu. Before I introduce you, I know you've got like a whole lot of things that you've done in your life. Please allow me to tell people exactly how I know you. For those who don't know, Tantaswa has actually helped me in my career in being who I am. You were one of the first people when we were working at KPMG who actually helped me with leadership. And you probably don't remember, I was a very, very tiny professional. I know I'm a young professional, but I was a younger professional back then. So I can't wait to really talk to you today. And I'm so happy that you've joined us. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much, Lebo. And thank you to ABSIP for this invitation. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So let me actually tell our viewers who Tantaswa actually is. All right? And I did say that I'm going to have to read because really the list is so much endless. But I think what you will appreciate is the fact that she is very passionate around transformation, diversity, inclusion. And this is certainly what we're going to be talking about today. So as a well-rounded thought leader, in the international space, you were a keynote speaker who's well vested in a number of different topical issues like wellness, diversity, like I said, inclusion and belonging. Also talent optimization, Tantaswa, in the finance and leadership and general world of work. Yeah. So you've also authored, imagine, numerous papers that have been published by both internationally and nationally. You were, just until 2022, though, November, the group executive responsible for human capital and transformation at Ballowwood Limited, which is an area that is seemingly an area for males, rather, but we'll talk about that. And you have, it's a company that's obviously listed in the JSE Exchange and UK Exchange. You are a chartered accountant by profession, and that's where we met. I'm not a chartered accountant, by the way. I wish I was. And you studied at UCT. Doing become accounting. If we were just to talk a little bit more around your experience, actually, which spans across 30 years in diverse sectors of the economy, including accounting, auditing, human capital, banking, education, industrial automation, medical schemes, and mining industry. Okay, so your experience was garnered really as a leader in audit partner, and that's at KPMG, a technical partner, a member of the board. My goodness, Tantaswa, the list goes on and on. Tell us a bit more about yourself, especially relating to transformation, the passion that you have. Let's dabble a little bit deeper around them.
Thank you so much, Lebo. That was very kind, the introduction. Thank you. For me, I believe that the passion that I have for transformation stems from the values that I was brought up with by my parents. One of the core values that I was brought up with is fairness. It's about justice. And I guess that's been my outlook in life, to say, is this being just? Is this being fair? And as I grew from a spiritual realm, I added in righteousness. Is it right? Yeah. And therefore, for me, when we talk about diversity and inclusion and belonging, it really just comes down to, are we being fair to people? Yeah. Are we being just? Are we doing right by the people? And that is what has propelled me, both in my personal life as well as my professional life. And that's the lens, really, that I've used in my professional life. And I guess then that I came into the transformation space was a natural progression of me holding on to the key values that form who I am.
Wow. I mean, I find transformation to be much of a journey, and I'm so glad that to you, looking at it, it needs to be fair. A journey that you're actually taking that is fair. But now, speaking of journey or seeing transformation as a journey, Tantaswa, do you think it is a road? It's a journey that we actually getting into. Are we there yet in terms of being transformed? I mean, it's Women's Month. We're talking to women, but not only women. Having ABSIP young professionals, we're also talking about the young women. Are we there yet? And if we really are not there, what do we still need to do to get there?
I don't believe we're there yet, to be honest. I think sometimes, specifically in South Africa, we make the mistake
Yeah.
of saying it's post 1994 and therefore we are a transformed country.
Yeah.
We forget to go back and say we might be a post apartheid country, but we're still not a post racial country. And it is so because the fundamental chassis of this country has not been shifted as far as transformation is concerned. Still today, if you look at the JSE, just, because it's public, it's there, you will find that majority of the people who are leading the JSE, either as the CEOs or the boards or just the C-suite, it's largely white and male.
Absolutely.
So we cannot talk about a post-racial or post-racist South Africa when the racism is just there for all of us to see. And somehow, I think one of the things that we need to do is saying, what must we do to get past and to transform? One of the things that we must do is we must not shy away from calling ourselves out, from saying, we are still here, we're taking baby steps, we're not where we should be. It's very gender biased. You really still do not see a number of women leading in these spaces. And yes, generally, if you look at the rest of the world, I think South Africa, from a gender perspective, is really at the forefront.
Yes.
However, there's something to be said about the looks, where you see that you've got 22% women in the listed companies of the JSE leading from both a board and an executive point of view. But how are they leading? Are they empowered as they lead? Do we women feel that we have the power to really change the status quo? Or do we come in and we believe that the only way for us to succeed and make it is to be pseudo males in the spaces that we occupy? So for me, transformation and diversity and inclusion is about having this diverse number of people who feel truly included. Because at this point, I think we have diversity and disinclusion.
Yes. Interesting. Interesting that you mentioned that, and I'm so sorry to interrupt you there, because I remember there was a forum, actually an AWA forum that I went to, and they mentioned around diversity being a little bit easier to achieve because it's literally you need to find a woman.
It's the numbers.
Exactly, it's a numbers game. However, inclusion is a different topic. Do you want to perhaps expand on that particular point?
Indeed. So, as you say, it's very easy to bring people in and you're diverse and you can see that you're diverse. It's about that sense of belonging, that sense of value, that sense of saying, this is where I'm at and the authentic me can thrive in this. It's about a sense of saying the spaces that I go into as a woman are spaces that are ready for me as a woman. And they're not spaces that are going to say, let's accommodate him, because language is also very important. When we talk about accommodating people, we are making ourselves as this mighty, for lack of a better word, God that is apportioning things for people, and we will apportion this much for the women that they must feel like they belong here, and we accommodate them here.
That is enough.
That's enough. Don't ask for anything else. Yes, this is your station in life. It has to be beyond that. It has to be a space where, as a woman, I can thrive. It has to be a space that recognizes that as a woman, I come with peculiar experiences and expressions of my life and experiences of my life. It has to be a space that says, for Tantaswa to be the best of who she can be, what do we do?
Yes.
And not how do we accommodate her, but what do we do to let this flower blossom?
If those are still the challenges we have 29 years after democracy, honestly, how legitimate is our scorecard? The BE scorecard that is used now? Because it does look at, the management control. It looks at the skill. You spoke about the skill. I mean, I may have the skill, but I don't have the authority. How legitimate is it? Does it actually still go back to a numbers game, you think?
So if we're going to talk about legitimacy, we need to look at legal legitimacy.
Yes.
We need to look at moral legitimacy. We need to look at social legitimacy, okay? Legally, we've got amazing laws in this country. That the corporates and everyone else has found ways to short-circuit the laws doesn't mean they're not legal, doesn't mean that they're not legitimate.
Yes.
What I find sad, actually, is how the leadership in corporate South Africa doesn't even know the Constitution. They don't know about the Bill of Rights. They don't know the EE Acts that are there. But those are the people who are supposed to be leading and implementing this, So that's the one side. Socially, you can see the social disparities. They're very clear. It's here, it's in your face. You can see it. We're not at the same level. And that's why it's difficult to talk about equal opportunities when we haven't done affirmative action.
How do we even measure that equal opportunities, honestly?
Because we cannot talk about equal opportunities when we're coming from disequal positions. Yeah. So there's a need for this affirmative action to put us on an equal footing, which means that I have to do more for a person like myself, an African black woman, than I am doing for a white male. And that is just the fact of where we are. So how do you bring me up to this level so that now we can start talking about equal opportunities? Thirdly, it's the moral level or moral leg of legitimacy.
It's the most important, actually, Tantaswa.
It is just the right thing to do. You cannot have the majority of this country being at the mercy of the minority. It doesn't work. At some point, this country is going to erupt. We've seen the 2 weeks in July, and if we blinded to that, if we have not woken up to what the potential is for the eruption of this country, we are in trouble. Because morally, it doesn't work.
Sure. I must say, as a young professional, I do get worried. I do look at where we come from. I do look at the 29 years, and we do actually get to mass criticism that really exists. Are we actually doing what we're supposed to be doing? Is in the act itself, in the BEE, triple BEE, the EE that came through, do we have some sort of what we call sunset clauses? Literally, it's meant to be there for a certain time. Transform as much as you can, put the numbers as much as you can. Once everything has died out, take out the clauses, take out BEE. That's what I mean by the sunset clause. Should I be worried? I am worried, but should I? Is there a little bit of some hope for a young professional like me and the viewers at home as well?
There's a lot of questions that you've asked me.
That shows, and that should show the concern that I have. Perhaps we can just talk around the sunset clause that I've mentioned. Are we looking at the act staying for long? Until such time it has ran its race? Are we looking at a point where we are comfortable? Our confidence level is at a right level for transformation until such time the BE is now taken out, the act itself. So perhaps let's unpack that particular question. Yeah.
Maybe let me try and answer you like this. Yes. So we had 1994 come. And people are talking about, transformation, the BE, the E Act, and everything else. Yeah. And I think research has shown that companies took this in however way, and they were like showing that signs that they are transforming. But somewhere, somehow, probably 10 years into the democracy, I have the sense that the minority in this country decided that it's enough. And we're going to hold the brakes. And you could see that even with the JSE-listed companies, the transformation was taking a step back. Firstly, what they did that we don't talk about in South Africa is when they said they were transforming their businesses, their organizations, they focused on the HR space. Because if you looked at the first senior Black executives, they were all in HR. But they did people a disservice because they never really empowered them. They never really exposed them to the experience that they should have. As a result, my lived experience as an executive is whenever I've looked for HR executives, you've got lots of people with amazing CVs who really do not know how to do the job because they were never given the opportunity to do the job. They sat there in the window dressed. That is a fact, and it's a fact that we need to call out.
And that's a skills development measurement, actually, that should be looked at, yeah?
And the experiences and the opportunities that they gave people or didn't give people. So that's the one thing. Coming to the sunset clause.
Yes.
I do not believe that we can sit here and talk about sunset clauses when the sun has not arisen.
It's not even there yet.
We're not there.
I hear you.
We cannot talk about the sunset clause when still the majority of this country is sitting outside of the kitchen.
My goodness.
We dare not think about sunset clauses when the majority of our people are still at the mercy of the minority. That can't be. I think that question should not arise as far as I'm concerned.
We're not there yet.
There's a lot of work that we need to do. There's a lot of uplifting that we need to do. There's a lot of empowerment that we need to do. There's a lot that the current crop of leaders, both Black and white, need to do to address the disparities that we see in this country.
It's a collaborative effort.
Not just for the country. I always say to people, let's assume that we're very selfish about this thing. Because for me, I have to do this because of my children. I do not want my children to inherit the problems that I am dealing with. So if we're just being selfish, we'll do this right so that our kids have a better future, a better country. So let's not talk about sunset clauses. We're not there.
Done. I shall never mention sunset clauses. Because, and very, very important, the sun has not yet
arisen.
It cannot set as yet. I hear you. You mentioned collaborative effort in, doing this together. It's not just about us Black people. But again, because of our audience, we're looking more into our young professionals. What is it that I need to be doing sitting there at home, how do I upskill myself? As much as you as businesses and the industry at large, you have a BE scorecard elements that you need to be adhering to. There's a compliance element that we'll talk about as well. But what do I need to do to be a better fit? In terms of upskilling myself, in terms of making sure that I'm the right fit as well, so that we don't go back to ticking the box and making it just about numbers.
There's this thing about corporate saying people are overqualified.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And with no experience.
Yes.
And I think it goes back to what you're saying. How do you upskill yourself? And probably the question should not just be about how do young people upskill themselves, because they cannot upskill themselves in a vacuum. You need to be given the opportunities to be able to upskill yourself.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's about that partnership between corporate and the young people to say, what opportunities are we opening up in corporate so that we can upskill young people and probably upskill them at an accelerated rate? One of the things that we've done previously at my previous job was to take young graduates and make them almost like the chief of staff in the different offices of the executives. And we had a sunset clause for that.
I promise you.
It would not be more than 18 months, because we were very deliberate that this is not something that you want this young person to do forever. You want to spin them off and pivot them to the business. So you bring in young graduates and they work with the executive. They actually go with you to any and every meeting and everything that you do. They are there.
Follow you, literally.
Yes. And it was amazing because, and we particularly focused on young African women. It was amazing that I can't remember one who finished the 18 months. And that is the potential that we're not seeing as this country. So I think the longest was probably 12 months. And they were ready, they were buzzing, they were ready to go into the business. And from there, we took them into the strategy function, the group strategy function. From there, you farm people out into the business. They are doing amazing things. They've become executives in divisions. It's not about lack of skill. It's not about lack of talent. It's about lack of opportunities. We need to afford young people opportunities. And as we afford them the opportunities, we need to drill into their minds that we're not taking a risk on them.
Yes.
That this is where they belong. Because there's this thing about I'm taking a risk on you. Again, language matters.
It does.
Because when I bring you in and I tell you that I'm taking a risk on you, I'm telling you that you are a risk. And therefore, how you show up will be like a risk. You will be a risk because I've told you that you're a risk.
Mindset will certainly just be on that. I'm a risk.
And you'll be scared to make decisions. You'll be scared to make mistakes because you're a risk. People can never be a risk. Yes, they may take risks, but they are not a risk. So for us, it was very clear. We told people, you are here, we believe in you, you are a professional. Just take this opportunity to learn. And it was amazing, the reverse mentorship that we got from working with young people. Young people are not scared to call you out. When we said this is the value that drives us, one of them, respect for people. I remember once, actually, we had an executive meeting and we had said we're going to stop at 1 and we're going to go into what we called a gamba, which is walking the floors and meeting the people.
Yes.
And the people were ready for us.
Yes.
And we were running late as the exco. The chief of staff in the CEO's office, because we had decided, okay, we're just going to continue with the exco, we're not going to do the Gemba. She called the CEO out and she said, if we are true to respecting the people, you will stop the exco and you will go out on the Gemba and you'll come and finish at your own time. And that's what we did. And that's what we are lacking, and that's what we will miss out if we do not bring in young professionals. Because these are the people who are not scared to call us out on our nonsense.
And they need it. Sure. I think that's quite profound, because listening this from someone that I've actually had an encounter with when I was younger, I have to mention younger, I'm still young. Is that, I was very fortunate to have taken that opportunity. But at the same time, and this is exactly what you're mentioning, it has to come, it has to be a pull and push effort as well. There was a pull from your end, and I needed to know and understand that I also belonged. 10 years later, this is me literally doing the same thing, and that is the opportunity set that you're talking about. Another thing I think from what I've gathered from you is that belief that you actually do belong. If they say that you're meant to be in a certain company, and because we literally tick in the boxes or we are trying to comply, you need to know that the opportunity is meant for you and you actually do belong. So I'll certainly take that with me, and I think our viewers will certainly take that with as well.
Yep.
I'm an internal auditor by profession, but I've got a compliance background, and I'm also very passionate about how we comply and how we report to the regulator. But compliance is very important in that I am very wary about creative compliance, and by that I mean literally in an audit space, you would call it cooking the books. So in this instance, cooking the numbers to make sure that you're compliant. In your view, how do we make sure that, or how does the industry make sure that compliance is legit, particularly compliance to transformation? It is reflective of exactly what is happening, and similarly, it is changing the culture of the company as it should.
So I'll tell you what we did when we wanted to change gears and transform in a relatively short space of time. And I think it's probably some of the things that the industry, the organizations, the companies can learn from. Firstly, our reporting, we dissected it into the most minute element. Because I've learned that when people report in a globular manner, it's very easy to put out a rosy picture.
There's a lot of gray areas.
Yes. So I got there, and how they were reporting, it was black and white, and black was the generic black, which is African, colored, and Indian, and all the grades squashed and put as one. And as you know, there's always the Irish coffee syndrome. You've got a sprinkle of black people at the top and the masses. And my issue was, let's disintegrate this thing. Let us show per grade. Let us show African, colored, Indian, white, non-South African. Let's show those things. But let's not only do the numbers, let's put the names. So if you say you've got 2 African females, it's Lebu and Tantaswa. The following year, I wanted to see, do you have 2, 3, or however? But if you have 2 African females, is it still Lebu and Tantaswa? Or is it Nomsa and Tandega?
That's how you gauge it.
Because then it means there's a revolving door and will never build up. So you need to go into the nitty-gritty and say, who are these 2? Were they here last year? If they're not here, where are they? What's happened to them? And what are they saying? And what we also started doing was to do post 6 months exit interviews because people don't tell you the truth when they're leaving now.
No.
Because they don't want to burn the bridges and da, da, da.
It's unprofessional, some feel as well. Don't tell too much truth.
But it's valid in a way. Yes. And my retort to that is, why would you not want to burn the bridge when the country is burning? Because the bridges are going to burn anyway. So let's just burn everything if we have to. But it is quite telling when you go 6 months after and people are now telling you the truth, but also telling you the truth with perspective and with less emotion.
Yes.
They're giving it to you as it is. Yes. And then you can start fixing. So that was one. The second one, which South Africa seems to be struggling with, you can't say, I'm creating a sense of belonging for the women here and you pay the woman less than the men.
Another topic, yeah?
So it was critical for us.
That disparity.
It was critical for us to say, you at the same level, you must be paid the same amount. And we make it seem so hard.
Yes.
It's actually not that hard. Because you can decide in 1 year not to pay the incentives and just take the money that you're going to pay the males as incentives and give to the women as their normal basic salary. And that's how you pop women up and you make sure that they're at the same level as men. It ain't that difficult. It's not rocket science.
Wow. In fact, if you embed that into your daily processes, compliance becomes easy.
That's it.
That's it.
And you hold increasing these salaries while you're increasing these. And you tell people the truth. You must be open. I think one of the things that the leadership is not doing properly is to be open to people and say, this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it and this is what we want to achieve by doing it. So if you're gonna say to me, this is my space as well, better pay me like it is my space. The third thing is, we say as companies, come as you are. We want to embrace the whole person. And I come into this company and I get pregnant because naturally, I'm a woman. I'm going to fall pregnant. No man is going to fall pregnant, right? I fall pregnant and I go on maternity leave. And then you tell me when I come back that when you pay the incentives, you're going to apportion mine for the 4 months that I was not here. If there's a male who was absent, was sick, had cancer for 2 months, they needed to go for chemo. No one is saying their bonus must be apportioned.
My goodness.
So why are you apportioning mine?
Because of the way you were born. And then, this is, you touch, I don't see how we can really talk about this topic without being emotive.
It is emotional.
Exactly.
Yes.
I don't see how we would not, honestly, because it is the reality. And I don't see how it is not as important to single that out, especially given that it is Women's Month. Honestly, we're still crying about the same thing. We're still crying about the disparity. And transformation is literally a swear word to quite a number of people. But the truth of the matter is we live like this every single day. And just because of the way we're born. Yeah.
And one thing that I really feel strongly about, and I feel strongly about it, but it doesn't impact me now as an older woman. No. We say, come as you are. And there's a young woman who's just given birth and is coming back to the workplace. Does anyone think about, and I suppose because it's not their experience, the breast gets full with milk. I get uncomfortable while working. Is there a room for me to express that milk so that I can be comfortable and do the work that I'm supposed to be doing in a manner that I can thrive, that I can bring all of me into this without worrying? Because I don't know if you've got kids, but if you've got kids,
I certainly do.
you know, when the breast gets full, it leaks, and even your top. So there's a whole lot that you're dealing with that people do not understand. No. And that is why you need women leaders, because they are going to think about these things and they're going to make sure that the infrastructure is so that
conducive.
it is conducive for me.
So that I can bring my A game.
Exactly.
I need to be able to bring my A game and
Yes.
still be comfortable at the
Yes.
same time. Tantaswa, I tell you what, if we talk about this, we will talk the entire day.
So for me,
I want to-
compliance must be the minimum. It's the minimum standard. We can do better. We must do better.
We can do better. We must do better. And we certainly will do better. Maybe tell me as we wrap up, please, how we are actually doing better. These associations that we have, or we've got ABSIP, and you've got ABSA as well. There are a couple of associations that you are privy to, that you sit on a lot of boards. How are we doing better?
One of the things that we're doing better, I think, is the advocacy. And I get concerned when young people say, the time for talking is over, let's just do. Because when you do with, and your action is not predicated on thought through and tested theory, it becomes a problem. When we do, we must know what we're doing, why are we doing it, when are we doing it, how are we doing it, to achieve what. And I think part of the value for me of these Black professional organizations is that cooking pot, getting the mind to really, be at that point. Yes. Secondly, I would hope, and I hope that there's a bit of Black consciousness that these organizations is bringing, that they are bringing. Because if we are not consciously Black, we're not going to be Black.
Wow. If you're not consciously Black, you will not be Black. I like that. I like that. Does that come naturally?
Probably to some, but it can be taught. You can read. And I think part of what the younger generation for me has to do is to go back to reading. So many books that you can read. There's Du Bois, there's Steve Biko. There's a whole lot of writing that's out there that sharpens the mind. There's a whole lot of reading that's there around feminism that sharpens the mind, that we need to be reading. We need to be reading about Angela Davis. We need to be reading those books.
So again, bringing it back to sorry to interject, to the associations. Also, you need to network as much as possible. That's why we have those particular associations, to make sure that we always in light with what's going on around us, and also make sure that we understand why we need to be transformed. Everyone needs to be transformed, and why it is actually something that I need to be looking at as a young person. Tantaswa, we can really talk about this every day, but we need to unfortunately wrap it up. I really appreciate you coming through, and I think my listeners or unlisteners will actually do appreciate your insight and your nuggets. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think what I've heard from today, as a young person, you need to make sure that you get that opportunity, and when you actually do have it, make sure that you understand that you do belong, because as a young professional, this is your time to shine. All right. Thank you. Look out for more podcasts. This has been great. Bye. Thank you.